That logic is so bonkers to me. She even says, we went to Iraq, we broke it, and we didn't even get anything out of it. It's like, yeah, we spent all this money to murder a lot of Palestinians, and we think we should also make some money on the deal. I mean, it's just, but that's the direction they're going in, is like, that's how it's America first, if we actually acquire this territory to develop to, you know, our benefit, or at least the benefit of Donald Trump and Jared Kushner.
So Donald Trump has announced, stated his insane plan for Gaza, which seemed to have taken even a lot of his own people, even his staffers, by surprise. But now the Republican spin machine has to create a narrative around this that isn't total insanity, and to somehow justify all of this. Krystal Ball and Ryan Grimm on Breaking Points broke all this down. So we're going to take a look at clips from Breaking Points, as well as clips from some various shows with right-wingers and Republican politicians. I'm going to have opinions on it too. Let's get into it together. Let's
go ahead and move on to some of the response that we've seen from Republicans primarily, since Trump is not really going to care what Democrats have to say about any of this. You can put Rand Paul up on the screen. He is sort of the most aggressively in terms of his pushback on, the idea of taking over Gaza. He says the pursuit for peace should be that of the Israelis and the Palestinians. I thought we voted for America first. We have no business contemplating yet another occupation to doom our treasure and spill our soldiers' blood. Noteworthy, however, not unexpected from Rand Paul, who tries to be fairly consistent in terms of his foreign policy approach in particular. More noteworthy to me was Lindsey Graham, not too crazy about this idea, put a 7 up on the screen. He says, I think most South Carolinians would probably not be excited about sending Americans to take over Gaza. I think that might be problematic, but Ryan, he is going to keep an open mind.
You got to keep an open mind. You got to keep an open mind.
Another one we have here for you here is Josh Hawley. He sort of echoed Lindsey Graham, telling Politico he didn't think sending troops to the Palestinian enclave was the right move. I don't know that I think it's the best use of United States resources to spend a bunch of money in Gaza. I think maybe I'd prefer that to be spent in the United States first. But let's see what happens, Ryan.
You gotta wait to see what happens. You gotta wait to see what happens. Yeah, you never know.
I mean, that's the thing, is like, even when they are mildly critical here, they leave themselves, of course, the opening that if Trump goes forward with it, they're going to say, masterful gambit, sir, brilliant move, out of the box, very generous.
Yeah, I mean, you put yourselves in the shoes of Graham or Hawley, and that is the best they're going to be able to do. Be like, oh boy, that's not so sure about that, but you gotta
keep an open mind.
Gotta keep an open mind. Because it goes back to their problem and the genius from his perspective of his entire politics, which is that there is no ideology. Mm-hmm. It is Trumpism. It is like what Trump says becomes the policy of the Republican Party.
That's right.
And if Trump says, I think that there is a massive structural and deep opposition from his followers to putting more boots on the ground in the Middle East. But if he said they're going to do it, at some point, a lot of them are going to be like, well, this is America first. It becomes America first.
That's right.
Somehow.
That's exactly right. I mean, I've already seen some of that on Twitter of oh, this would be amazing. We'd get to own this. Think how incredible that would be. We could do whatever we want with it. And you see this with any number of issues where it's all of a sudden Trump says something about Greenland or Panama, and all of a sudden people who had never thought about Greenland and Panama think it's the most brilliant thing on the planet and are 1,000,000% in favor of it, et cetera, et cetera. And the other thing is, this time around, Trump really, he has completely cowed the Republican Party. Any of the Jeff Flakes of the world, the people that were there in the first administration that were more adversarial, they're gone. And I think this part is really important, he's got Elon Musk there to be if you don't do what this president wants you to do and what I want you to do, I Elon Musk, unelected new leader of the country, then I'm going to drop an infinite amount of money on your head in a primary. And that is a very real threat and very effective at enforcing the line here.
If I were going to check.
And I want to stop here for just a second. Krystal Ball is absolutely right with what she's saying. And it's such a great point that Republican politicians and just the voters and supporters, MAGA, are just going to go along with whatever Donald Trump says. Great example of this is USAID or USAID. Seeing all these people on, as Krystal Ball said, on Twitter and other social media, oh, this is so great what Elon's doing. You know, he's rooting out the corruption and the waste in USAID. And I've asked people, like people that I know personally, what did you know about USAID a week ago? Was this something that was on your radar where you sitting around thinking, man, they really need to do something about USAID. It's a corrupt organization and they're wasting my tax dollars and everything. No, most people didn't know what USAID was. They weren't thinking about it, but because Donald Trump, or Elon Musk in this case, says it's bad, then it's bad. So that's going to be exactly the same thing that will, you know, it's just like with the grocery prices. That was my eggs are too expensive. And now all of a sudden nobody's talking about eggs anymore. And it's like, oh, it's patriotic to pay more for your eggs. That's the price of freedom. You know, they're going to turn on a dime at whatever Donald Trump tells them to do. And this is why I've said this a lot on this channel, but I wish if I were in Trump's position, I would mess with the base more. I would just come out and be like, executive order declaring Hillary Clinton to be the best person who ever lived. And, you know, and just all of a sudden they would just be like, all right, I guess we like Hillary Clinton now. That's what he said. So maybe we were wrong about her all along. You know, it's such insanity. And with Rand Paul, you know, Rand Paul, he almost doesn't even count with any of this because he's the one kind of ultra-libertarian guy in the Congress who he doesn't want to spend money on anything. So, of course, he's going to be against this. I mean, there will be people that will give him points for being like, hey, Rand Paul's principled. He's against this. He doesn't want there to ever be money spent on anything. Channel
Sagar here, I think he would say, these guys know Trump isn't going to do this, so they're just being as generous as they can in the meantime. Is that what Sagar would say, you think?
I'm not sure, because I don't think that he would deny that in the end, if Trump did go forward with this, that they would fall in line. Yeah, I mean, we've seen it over and over again. At the same time, there were plenty of Republicans who took no issue whatsoever, didn't even express the slightest bit of hesitation about this idea. In particular, the new leader of the Senate, that would be John Thune, which I'm still getting used to, by the way, Majority Leader Thune, and Mike Johnson, who, of course, is the House Speaker. Here is Manu Raju talking to both of them.
Yeah, we're trying to get the details of it, but I think this is a good development. We have to back Israel 100%, and so whatever form that takes, we're interested in.
Of course, we have to back Israel no matter what, 100%. They can never be questioned ever.
And, having that discussion, but it was a surprising development, but I think it's one that we'll applaud. So.
Would you support the presence of troops?
And I just caught up with the Senate Majority Leader John Thune, asked him a similar question about whether or not this was an idea that was worth pursuing, if it was a feasible proposal. And this is what the Senate Majority Leader said.
Senator, what do you think of Trump's takeover Gaza proposal? Is that a realistic idea?
We want to bring a more peaceful and secure Middle East and put some ideas out there.
Shrugging it off of sorts, saying just simply putting some ideas out there. Other Republican senators, including Senator Lindsey Graham, did not think it was quite a workable idea. But you're not really hearing nearly the amount of pushback that you're hearing from Democrats. A lot of Republicans think this is an idea that simply is just far-fetched, something that never will actually be achieved, and that eventually the discussion will move on beyond this. And as you heard from the Senate Majority Leader right there, seeming to put a lot of stock into this proposal. But the Speaker of the House very much defending what Donald Trump has said last night on multiple occasions, that this would be something that's worth pursuing.
Also interesting to me, over on Fox News in primetime, Laura Ingraham and her guest were trying to make that spin of how this could be seen as America first. So if Trump moves forward with this idea, I think you'll hear more of this line of argumentation. Let's take a listen to what they had to say.
When Americans are building monuments to Donald Trump as the most consequential president of the past 100 years, I don't think our grandchildren will fully appreciate just how consequential the guy is and just what a radical departure he is from both Democrats and Republicans of the past 100 years who have been presidents who are cautious and careful. And this guy wants to be consequential and solve problems.
Well, I think it's so foreign to us to hear this, that, wait a second, we actually may solve a problem. We actually may make money on it. Like that's a bad thing for the United States to get repaid for the tens of billions of dollars just in the last few years we've dumped into the Middle East, and the trillions we've spent over the years. When we go to Iraq, we break it, and then we don't get the oil leases or any of the rebuild. And meanwhile, we leave our equipment there, tens of billions of dollars in Afghanistan. For what? What did we get in either of those places except a massive refugee crisis in Europe, the creation of ISIS, and a stronger Iran?
That logic is so bonkers to me. She even says, we went to Iraq, we broke it, and we didn't even get anything out of it. It's like, yeah, we spent all this money to murder a lot of Palestinians, and we think we should also make some money on the deal. I mean, it's just, but that's the direction they're going in, is like, that's how it's America first, if we actually acquire this territory to develop to, you know, our benefit, or at least the benefit of Donald Trump and Jared Kushner.
You know what would be America first would be if we just didn't get into these wars and spent the money at home on things that Americans need. But this is where, you know, the propaganda on Fox News and the right-wing propaganda. I've not been to North Korea or watched any North Korean news, but I can't imagine that their propaganda is much worse than what we get from Fox News and other right-wing outlets. So all of these people like Laura Ingraham and these various right-wingers, you know, 25 years ago, Iraq, Afghanistan, we got to go in there, you know, blah, blah, blah. And this is one area where Donald Trump has been consistent. Is, now he backed off on it after a time, but when he was running in 2015 and 2016, he talked about what a waste Iraq and Afghanistan was. And that was the only time that I've ever seen some MAGA right-wingers actually question him. They would say, I don't know that I agree with that. They agree on everything else, but all of these right-wingers were all on board with the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And now they pretend like they weren't, and it was a waste of money and blah, blah, blah. But when you have comments from Republican politicians like Josh Hawley, they say, oh, well, you know, I don't want to spend the money on Gaza. We want to spend the money at home here on Americans, America first. Okay, when you start talking about that, do you want to do infrastructure? No, you know, it's woke. Infrastructure is woke. Okay, how about free college? Socialism. Okay, you know, money for school lunches, socialism. Lower drug prices. No, we're not doing that. We got to raise drug, you know, so it's like they pretend that they don't want to spend money on these foreign conflicts because now all of a sudden they're anti-war, but they don't want to spend the money at home either. They don't want to spend any money. They just want everything to be a gigantic tax cut and our country just be a hollow shell of nothingness, with just all of the money in the hands of the incredibly rich, and then everybody else just lives in squalor, I guess. But let me know in the comments, is there anything, well, okay, the one thing that they do like to spend money on is vouchers so that people can go to religious schools and charter schools. That's one thing that they like to spend money on. But there's not too much else that I can think of off the top of my head. Let me know in the comments what you think. There are things that if we weren't spending all this money in wars and giving it to other countries, particularly in the Middle East, what would Republicans actually spend money on? Would it be anything that benefits normal people? I don't think so. But let me know what you think about what Krystal Ball and Ryan Grimm had to say about all of this. This is Chris on Culture. I'll see you in the next video.